Hi, my name's Christian Flotter. Welcome. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Gosh, did you sleep well last night? You know, I always get confused by that saying, he slept like a baby. Because for some parents, that means waking up every 20 minutes, needing a feed, and to be rocked back to sleep again. Let's talk about sleeping babies. So let's talk about sleep. Look, there are many benefits to a great night's sleep, be it from improved learning, improved cognition. It helps to cleanse the brain out of bits of gunk and pieces that stick around during the day. It helps with memory, it helps with development. There are certainly definite benefits to a good night's sleep. But you know, one of the most common questions I get asked is, when will my baby sleep through the night? Now, this is a really complicated question because between 3 and 6 months of age is when we start to see the development of what's known as the circadian rhythms. So kids start to differentiate between day and night. So we would expect to see babies starting to sleep better at night at around that time, right? Well, that's the complex part of things. The simple answer is, when your baby wants to sleep through the night, they'll sleep through the night. But there's a lot more to it than that. Let's have a dig. So firstly, how much sleep does my baby actually need? Well, as a newborn, we require a lot of sleep in a 24-hour period because they haven't quite figured out day and night yet. They get about 16 to 19 hours of sleep during that 24-hour period. Now, that doesn't mean they sleep for 16 hours straight and then have 8 hours awake. They do this in small chunks. And then we change over time until around 4 years of age, where we're nearly at adult type of patterns, where we'd expect to be sleeping pretty much 11 to 12 hours overnight without any day naps. However, I think sometimes they could be useful. But what about at 6 months? Well, at 6 months, there's a little bit more vagueness in regards to sleeping patterns. You see, by 6 months, we'd expect those circadian rhythms to have really been established, and as such, more adult type of sleeping patterns to have emerged. Now, this is where there's some actual real conflict, because some research is out there that suggests by this age, children shouldn't need to wake up at night anymore. But you know what? If my child's waking up at 6 months of age and they look like they need a feed, I'm going to give them a feed. Well, I'm going to kindly wake up my wife and politely ask her to go and give the kids a feed whilst I go get her a glass of water, because apparently breastfeeding is thirsty work. But there are other factors that may help determine, is this actually waking for a purpose? Now, how long do they take to get to sleep? Most kids, most adults, are asleep within 7 minutes. Kids are usually quicker than this. Does it take a longer period of time to get to sleep? Or are they waking and not really needing a feed? Are they not getting satisfied with a feed? Or are they waking more frequently than every 3 or so hours? Maybe they're waking every 30 minutes. You see, after around 30 minutes, kids should be entering into their deep sleep cycles and shouldn't be waking up at this stage. It's an important stage of their sleeping process. The other thing is, this research doesn't take into account individual variances that we might be seeing. Are they getting too much stimulation during the day? At this age, 6 months, kids are still learning how to process all of this sensory input, be it from lights and sounds and smells and touches, and too much of this may be overloading their systems, especially in children who are showing signs of sensory processing disorders. What about itchiness? Say, for instance, they've got a case of dermatitis. They might be getting disrupted because they're scratching themselves during their sleep. How about snoring? Does your child snore? Children shouldn't snore. It might be an indication that their tonsils or adenoids are swollen up. They might be experiencing a form of obstructive sleep apnea, blocking their noses and blocking their airways off, and having one of those moments waking themselves up. Well, how about this one? Could they be in a bit of pain? In a recent retrospective analysis we performed here, we looked at kids with unsettled behaviour. Now, within unsettled behaviour, we had included sleeping difficulties. Now, over 70% of children coming through our clinic express difficulties with unsettled behaviours. Now, this is interesting because if sleeping's a part of that unsettled behaviour, there is other research that actually has shown reductions in night waking, reductions in the time taken to get to sleep, and longer sleeping duration as a result of chiropractic care. Could this have been working on that same system that's creating that unsettled behaviour? Could it be due to improving pain? This to me seems like a pretty good reason to get your child assessed by a health professional, especially if they're having some difficulty with sleeping, as there may be some underlying condition that's causing them to wake up more frequently than what they should be. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any questions, you can ask Dr. Christian.